Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of Transition Talks with Athlete Soul, where we discuss the stories of transition with former elite athletes and what they have learned throughout the process. I'm your host, Steve Davis Jr., former football player, athlete transition coach with Athlete Soul, and the founder of Strive Higher After Sports. Today, we get a chance to talk to Jenn Williams, a former University of North Carolina women's basketball captain turned trailblazing athletics administrator and current Chief Development Officer at the USA Basketball Foundation. Jenn has made her mark guiding programs, championing athletes, and shaping the future of sport well beyond the court. I'm excited to jump right into the conversation with her, so let's go. All right, all right. Welcome in, Jen. How are you doing?
I am doing great. It's almost Q4 is here, so we're trying to finish strong. But no, it's a fun time right now with just programming starting up, closing out the year with fundraising goals. So yeah, busy but fun time.
Yeah, yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. And, I know we met back at the NCAA Career Sports Forum where you were facilitating the full 3-day experience for student athletes and
Yeah.
just learning a little bit more about you and your journey. I'm excited to dive in even more so today. And yeah, you've been involved in a lot of great things, athletic director, chief development officer of USA Basketball Foundation and your former basketball player. But let's go
Yeah.
back to the beginning. Let's talk about your journey a little bit further, and why basketball, and what about basketball was like, so inspiring and spoke to you.
Yeah, so I honestly did not like start playing basketball until like sixth grade. So like I think Aja Wilson talked about she was late. Like I was on the Aja Wilson train. I was into other things. I was into dance. I was really girly, like dance, like book club, like gymnastics. And then I feel like I got tricked into doing it. I went to a new middle school. I went to a friend's school of Detroit. It's a Quaker school, and we shared the same PE space with another school called Waldorf. And Big Sean went to Waldorf. Gonna shout out Big Sean. So we shared. So the gym teacher, who I'm still in a mentor of mine, Coach Mark Honey, he saw me in gym class and he just asked me, I was tall. He was like, "Have you thought about playing basketball?" And my dad had been trying to get me, I think subliminally, he was doing drills to get me prepared for this moment. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll try it. New school, like, let's meet some new people. I get to go over to the other school. And so I loved it. I was a natural with just rebounding, a knack for the ball, had really great hands. And I think that goes to my dad doing secret drills to get me prepared for the moment. But basketball was not my first love when it comes to sport. It was actually baseball. And then I just, again, when I was asked to try out or to try it, I tried basketball in sixth grade, joined the team. I couldn't do anything but rebound, but I fell in love with the game, the teamwork, the camaraderie. Um, I loved that. My coach was great and I made a commitment to get better. And so that summer, my dad took me to tons of camps around Metro Detroit, and he got me a trainer. And I really just locked in because I enjoyed it. It was a way to stay healthy. It was a way to develop friendships. It was fun. I'm competitive, and even though I wasn't into tons of sports, I'm just still I'm a naturally competitive person. So that gave me the platform and the space to really channel and own in on my competitive nature. And that summer, I came back after my sixth grade summer in seventh grade, and I was a whole different player. I was the best player on the team. That through that hard work and commitment to getting better, the growth happened. And so that was kind of how I wouldn't say I fell into basketball, but it was not something like students now. Like my son is 4 and he's playing like YMCA basketball. Like I would have never thought I wasn't thinking about playing basketball at 4. I was like swimming and ballet. And so now kids are starting much earlier, but I was late to start. But through hard work, I was able to really rise and be one of the top players in our state and in the country for my class.
Wow, yeah, no, that's an amazing
Yeah.
story. it's kind of funny, like when you fall into the sport and you find out like what your gifts and talents are, then you're like, okay, let me put a little bit more energy into that. I had a very similar upbringing. I was into baseball and basketball, and then I found out I was good at football. So I was like, let me commit at that, right? And then it takes you to the next level.
Exactly.
So for you, you went to North Carolina, and then what was that like? What was your highlights in your career, I guess?
Yeah, so again, North Carolina just kind of happened. Like that they were like one of the top 25 schools who had not recruited me. I had letters from everyone, Tennessee, UConn, like all the top schools. And so Carolina came in late, like my junior year, they saw me play at the Junior Nationals in Washington D.C. And I am still the first player that they've signed from Michigan. And so went down there, didn't like they wanted me to come down. Coach Hatchell called me from Hawaii on her Nike trip and was like, "We want you to be our first player to come on your official visit." But in Michigan, when I was in school, I'm ancient. We played in the fall, so we swapped with volleyball. So we played during football season. We was football, women's basketball, and like soccer and some up. So we didn't. We I could not come because we had a game. And so I went the second weekend and I instantly fell in love. It was still my first official visit, but they pretty much trumped all the other schools I had in my top five or four, well, five, yeah. And so I decided, I'm like, okay, I didn't commit then. I wanted to get away from the atmosphere. But when you know, you know. Like
Hmm.
I said, I took basketball out the equation when I was making my decision. I said, could I just be here as a normal student and love it? And I could. And I had no family in North Carolina. I was going in like blind, but everyone was so friendly. I just, coming from Detroit, and not that we are unfriendly, but it's different being from the Midwest and going down south. Everyone was super nice. The football team wasn't even there on my visit. That's why she was pushing me to come the weekend before. But I still had a great time without having the game and the pomp and circumstance like with the game. I still got to talk to my teammates, future teammates, and really bond with them. And so being at Carolina, it was great. It was one of the best decisions that I made. Basketball wasn't always great, but the school was great for me. I was blessed to be a captain for 2 years, my junior and senior year. Played a lot as a freshman. Like I said, when I came out of high school, I was top 25 in my class. Played a lot as a freshman, was benched my sophomore year because we wanted to go with a different lineup. We did not have a lot of success my sophomore year. So I'm gonna say because they didn't play me, they didn't
Yeah,
have a lot of success. No, I'm not.
bingo.
I'm just looking at my teammates. I'm like, for real? No, that wasn't. We just had. It was the dynamic. So we did not do well as a team that year. I didn't play a lot. I was thinking about transferring. Talked it through with my dad, my mom, and they were supportive. But at the end of the day, I looked at the school. Everything's going great except for basketball, but you control what you control. That's what my dad told me. He said, Jennifer, what are the things that are within your control? Like, I can't make my coach play me, but what can I do so that she can't deny me? And so I had to get in better conditioning. I had to refocus and be more committed to my conditioning, which I did. I had to change my attitude. That's the control. That's the part that I can control, how I show up. And so that summer going into my junior year, I made a commitment to be better in terms of my leadership, how I show up, my conditioning. And I started, it was like everything started to change. I made my mile in time. I was killing it, in terms of just my weight room performance. Off season workouts, I was doing really well. And so I locked in on the things that I could control. And that's when I saw the shift. And so I was named captain my junior year, and then I was captain my senior year and started all games my senior year.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
being named captain, that's quite an honor, right?
Yeah, it was we had. I mean, our teams did well. My first year, we made it. I want to say to the Elite Eight. Then we made it to the Sweet 16. My last year, we got upset by Colorado. and I'm in Colorado, to go to the Sweet 16. And they were like actually the first school that sent me a letter, Colorado.
Mm.
And so, but I had a great, like I said, I enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed my teammates. We still talk. I won I was a scholar athlete rep for our team. I think 3 out of my 4 years at UNC. And then I also won the McCaskill Award my senior year, which they pick a male and female student athlete out of Carolina athletics who embody and excel in scholarship, your playing field as well as in the community. So it was a award about being well rounded, and I won that my senior year. So I had a great time as a student athlete. But I tell people all the time now it's so easy when it gets hard for people to leave, and the grass isn't always greener. Sometimes you got to look at things that you can control, and I knew that I'm very big on self reflection. My attitude could have been better in certain situations. And that's something I focused on. And I wasn't in the best shape. And so I had to do some things. But I think now with transfer portal, it's just people just leave. And I know it's changed from when I was in school 20 years ago. But I think sometimes we have to be committed to being at that institution and making the best of it because you never know how things can swing. I never would have thought I would have been. I knew I was a great leader. I was captain while I was in high school 3 years in a row. We won 3 state championships while I was in high school. So I knew I had what it takes as a leader, but to be a leader of a team on a collegiate level, top 25 team, that was a really great accomplishment for me because I didn't have that on my vision board coming into college. I just wanted to make an impact. I just really wanted to get a college scholarship, to be honest with you. That was my goal. I didn't want my parents to pay for college. And so, yeah, I loved my time. I loved being a student athlete at Carolina.
Yeah, and that's great perspective. Like, given that you saw your leadership abilities grow, and then those opportunities start to present themselves, even in college, for you to be a captain and leading a top 25 team, and even sharing like the perspective of what these student athletes are going through right now, and giving the standpoint of trying to stick it out and be resilient, and just transferring that to life. I'm curious for your standpoint as you were, having a great collegiate career. I'm sure there were aspirations to go and play further. What was that like, and when was that transition period for you, and how did you feel it through that transition period?
Yeah, so I never like my daughter now, I look at it because the representation of visibility of the WNBA, she's like, okay, mom, I want to go play basketball, be a pro basketball player in the WNBA. I never aspired to play in the WNBA. It really was to just get a college scholarship because when I came out, the WNBA, I want to say started in 97. So it was just starting. And then when I graduated in 2000, I finished playing in 2003. Um, I wasn't, I was all ACC, like on the freshman, like when I was, but I wasn't any of those accolades. Like I was academic, I was all ACC on academic. So I knew realistically if I was going to play, it would be overseas.
Mhm.
And I did receive opportunities to go overseas. I received a tryout from the Detroit Shock. I'm from Detroit. But I actually decided, again, self reflection, I was done playing. It was a hard decision for me to make and to come to, but I was at peace with being done as a basketball player. And I made the decision not to go to the tryout with the Shock. I wanted to pursue going overseas to study abroad. I felt like my impact to the game was going to be on the business side, was going to be more coaching student athletes through life and through sport. And so it was hard because basketball had been my identity as a basketball player since sixth grade. But I do think that it was easier for me to transition out of some of the depression I was feeling when it fully closed was because I knew that I was more than a basketball player. While that had been Jennifer, the basketball player, Jennifer, she's really good. I knew that I had more skills. I knew that there was more to me than just that piece. That's a huge and important part of who I am. And it shaped how I look at certain things because I've been at a high level competing in sport, but it's not who I am. So I had to remind myself, and it is a redefinement of your brand. Like I had to, it was hard for me to go back because I took 5 years at Carolina. I loved it so much. I took five. And so, like I said, I studied abroad. I came back my fifth year and I got to be on campus as a regular student, but it was hard for me to go back to games because, I did miss the part of being around my team, even though I still roomed with some of my teammates. It was different because I wasn't in practice. That had been my norm for 4 years. And so that was a hard adjustment. But, through prayer, through talking, to my parents and, even my teammates at the time who were still playing, was able to navigate through that. And was other opportunities I started to see come about through my relationships I built while I was student athlete. I ended up being able to go work at Fox Sports right after college. And that was through my relationships with going to see my academic advisors, being present at the ACC meetings for Media Day, connecting with people at the ACC offices. So I say that to say you have to do the work. I reminded myself, even while I was a student athlete, that there's going to be a point when this ball stops bouncing. But I have to still do the work, even though I wasn't required. I phased out of study hall after my first semester as a freshman. So my GPA was good. I got to not go back, but I stayed up in study hall. Now, granted, there was some cute little football players over there, so I was in, but no, I mean, stop. But I stayed in study hall, and already, like, I really was in there trying to look at internships, trying to connect with the advisors because they are the ones who are going to plug you for the internships. And even though a lot of the internships I could not do because we were air quote required to be there during the summer, I still let them I shared with them what my goals were. And at that time, it was to work in television. I was a journalism major, a double major on journalism and African American history. And so, I'm like, when I'm done with the J school, this is what I want to do. And that's how by me sharing, I was able to get that Fox Sports experience and job right after college. And that had a lot to do with my relationships I built through our academic advisement unit as well as the ACC offices.
Wow. What do you think contributed to your maturity in regards to knowing that you were more than just an athlete and preparing yourself for that? Because a lot of us don't have that off the top. Like we're going through it and we have one track mind, and a lot of people are trying to carry that legacy of being an athlete for as
Mm-hmm.
long as they can. But you decided to like say, hey, this is going to be the end. I know it's going to be hard, but I got more things happening in my life that I want to pursue. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I have to say my high school. I went to Detroit Country Day, which was a college prep school known for producing great basketball and football and soccer too, talent, like just as an athlete. But our motto was strong mind, strong body. I'm not going to give you all the Latin version of it because I'm going to mess it up. But it was strong mind, strong body. And that was instilled in me since that my ninth grade. And so it taught us that in order to about well-roundedness, you have to feed your mind just as much as you feed your body. We had homework in every subject every night. And if you were on financial aid, which I was, you had to play two sports. And so I was prepared going to college because I knew how to manage my time. And because I went to a high school that showed us that, yeah, you're great in basketball, you're really good, but you're also extremely intelligent. And you can be the president of the Contemporary Issues Club as well as the debate team if you want. And so it gave us options where you saw the lens outside of just being that athlete. And so I'm grateful that I got to see that early on. A lot of my teammates in college didn't. And I think that's what helped me. My coaches always said, you know how to juggle and you're well rounded. Like I love basketball, but basketball wasn't going to be my only thing consuming me because you only get to go to college once. So I wanted to be a part of the Black student movement. I wanted to do other things. I was accepted into the journalism school, even though some of the people were like, go to the comms route. No, I wanted to go to the J school and be so like you have to advocate for yourself, first of all. A lot of student athletes, they don't. They just listen to what people are telling them and just focus on the sport. Even if you do go pro and that you're really great, you still have to have a backup plan because you never know from an injury standpoint. Life be lifing. And
Hmm.
so you have to have a plan. And my coach always used to say the 6 P's: proper prior planning prevents poor performance. And I always tried to come in, okay, if this doesn't work, and I always knew that that wasn't my end goal to play pro. But if it happened, then okay, great. But then I'm gonna assess, is this really what you want? And I just felt again that my greater impact would be to go a different route. And but if I told my teammates, but you still have to have a plan. If playing pro is what you want to do, great. But how are you preparing yourself for the game of life? Like once that ball stops bouncing.
Yes, that is 100% true, and it's a great thing to learn early, especially now because there's so many great opportunities that these athletes have in front of them with NIL and um, just being able to have a little bit more ownership of their brand and their identity within sports. But to, as you said, like the 6 P's, have that principle, that framework in mind to think about how to really build on who you're trying to become now, and use
Mm-hmm.
that as a way forward. And you talked about your first, getting into journalism and starting off with Fox Sports, but obviously you've had a tremendous career, in athletics, being in the development, the athletic director side, to now you're at USA Basketball. How did that come about, and what has been like the most rewarding thing for you in your career?
Oh my gosh. So I will say that like every job I've taken has contributed to my growth. Like working in television was really hard. Like going to Atlanta at right out after school, working at Fox, really corporate and not really, I've never had a job. I mean, I worked at Panera Bread my senior year in high school, but I really didn't have a job. Like that was my really first time. And Fox Sports is just it's a little different. And so to go there and see certain things, it wasn't a lot of people of color. It was probably three of us, and one was a administrative assistant. I was in an apprenticeship role, and the other one was an anchor, and she was an analyst. So it really, was very minimal of people of color in the space. And I'm someone who prides myself on diversity all the way, all around. And so that was different, even though Atlanta is a great city, but my work environment was different. So, but what I saw in television really, really prepared me. I saw how people would like go at each other, curse each other out, be very like just abrasive with each other, but then go have a beer after the show was done. And that really taught me about having tough skin and not taking stuff personal, which helped me as I became and moved up at the athletic administration route. You cannot lead with emotion. You're gonna have battles, but at the end of the day, people are very passionate about things. You have to have tough skin. And to see that early on in my career, and I'm not saying go cuss everybody out, but I saw how people were going dark, and then it was like, oh, let's have a beer, Johnny, afterwards. And I'm like, wow, because I would have been ready to like,
Bro,
don't
we
ever
cut
talk
off.
to me again. You're done. Like, send me an email. It's no more verbal. But to see that, I'm like, wow, that opened my eyes to something because I was just like, yeah, me, no. So those were lessons. But I knew that again, I tell people all the time, and I just talked to some students about this earlier. You have to be okay with walking away from situations that do not align with your purpose. And even though I was really good at being an analyst, I did very good as a production assistant. That was my role at Fox. I knew how to cut and edit film, all that stuff. That was not my purpose. I just was not walking in it. I thought that's what I want to do, but when I got into it, no. And even though I was good at it, people are like, oh, you should. No, I'm going to make a decision that's right for me. And that was for me to go back to grad school. I always wanted to go to an HBCU. So I went to North Carolina Central University where I received my master's in sport administration. I had a scholarship through the WBCA after I graduated. I won the Robin Roberts Sports Communication Award through them. So I had some funds to go to grad school, and I decided to go to an HBCU and pursue sport administration. And that's where I really got a hands on into the dynamics of how to run an athletic department. And and I felt like that's when I knew like this is my calling. This is the space I need to be in. But I wasn't fearful of walking away and not listening to my parents. Or, I have to live my life. And that's why I tell students, you can be good at stuff, but it doesn't align with your purpose. You know what's best for you, once you get into your career. And so you have to move and operate and go toward that calling. And so I was able to get into sport administration. North Carolina Central at the time was transitioning from Division II to Division I. Was able to be in some really great meetings, learn about the fundraising side, the marketing, sports information. I had my hands in everything because it was such a small, they didn't have the resources of some of these bigger institutions. And it's a blessing because I got to be in meetings that I probably shouldn't have been in at that age, but it helped me grow. And so, was able to matriculate, worked in fundraising there, went and worked at Women Leaders where I was in marketing. And then from there, I went to DePaul University where I was doing fundraising as well. And from there, went to North Carolina A&T where I started to really be in a leadership role and overseeing a department as well as overseeing our foundation. And that's kind of really where I skyrocketed and became known as someone on a national level who knows how to generate revenue at limited resource institutions. And that was something I always carve your own path. You didn't see a lot of women, and especially a lot of women and people of color raising money. I remember when I made the decision to go into fundraising and development, the external side, people were like, no, you should maybe look at internal compliance because that's where all they were putting the Black people in a box. And I knew just what aligned with my personality and nothing against my compliance and acting, y'all are great. That just wasn't for me. And so I, was like, hey, I'm going to create this lane just because you don't see a lot of us now doesn't mean in 10, 15 years, I can't start the trend. You need that representation. And so I was able to do some amazing things in the fundraising space, was able to be on the NAD, which is our National Association for Athletic Development Directors. I was on their executive committee, the first Black woman to be on to serve in that position. And I don't think it's been one since. So we got to work on that, NAD. But to be able to be that first person, and I think that was in 2017, we have some time, we have a long way to go. So I say that to say, don't listen to the naysayers, create your own lane. I could have easily said, no, I'm going to go do this because you don't see people that look like me. But because I stepped out of my comfort zone and pursued my passion, I have been able, to be an athletic director and to now oversee the foundation at USA Basketball.
As a person who is in a leadership role with USA Basketball and just through your experience, being in athletics, what are some of the things that you would say to future leaders about navigating the space and getting to a position of power like you have?
Yeah, I mean, you have to love what you do. Working in sports, it's not a 9 to 5. You're going to have to grind. It's no shortcuts. There are long hours. But the thing is, you have to genuinely lock in and be passionate about what it is you're doing. I'm, as a fundraiser, every institution I've worked at, I believed in their mission. I believed in creating opportunities for student athletes to have success. You keep the main thing the main thing. And I've always kept and led with the student athlete because I was a student athlete. And so keeping them at the forefront of how I can better support them, how I can better support coaches to do the job of supporting the student athlete. That's how I've been able to rise. One of my mentors said, as administrators, you check your ego at the door. It's never about me. I believe in leading from a place of love. I feel like people would genuinely lock in and go the extra mile if they believe that you care about them as a person. But I also believe in holding people accountable. And, I'm big on laying out expectations, whether to staff, coaches, student athletes when I was in that role, so that they know it's no gray area and they understand exactly what it is and what the expectations are going into an academic year. And so accountability, integrity, those are two words that I always talk about. And people and relationship. You know, I don't get caught up in the money. Yes, I work with money. I know the value of money. I know how important it is to raise money. But to me, it's about the relationship and sharing the story of the impact of how this will help the student or help, a youth in an area. That's what I'm big on. And I just say, people can sense someone who's not genuine. I believe in being authentic, your professional, authentic self. You got to be professional, but you can always show up as yourself. That's something I made sure when I went to these conventions where it may have only been 5 people of color in a room of 300 development folks. I'm going to stand up and ask a question. I've been told I have a really good presence. So I'm going to stand up. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to know who's speaking and I'm going to network with different types of people. What I see is that sometimes we get in these conventions or these symposiums or conferences and we gravitate to people like us. You have to be intentional to try to meet someone new. So when I was younger, I kind of challenged myself, okay, who are you going to meet new today? Let's have 3 people that we got to touch that we would maybe not ever talk to in a normal, but let's be intentional about connecting. And then I really am big on networking. Like people will talk about networking. I believe in networking across, like the people who I've encountered in cohorts, who I've met, and they have really helped me. And not that other people can't, but um, don't diminish the power of networking across. It is super impactful. You never know who's sitting in a cohort with you who is going to be able to have your back and speak your name in a room.
Hmm. Yes, yes. Accountability, intentionality, relationships. And what you just shared at the end is even more impactful because we witnessed it at the Career and Sports Forum,
Mm-hmm.
giving all those student athletes a chance to connect with each other. And I hear
Yep.
stories of them staying in contact with each other because you never know what's going to happen with anybody's life, but having those relationships truly matter. They open doors,
Yep.
giving you the first opportunities. And you never know when somebody's going to be thinking about you. So being intentional about the relationships that you build is super important to
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing out in the real world. And one last question I wanted to ask, just given the fact, with athletes, so we do a lot to get people to be more mature and prepared for life after sports, like you were, giving them a sense of identity and purpose beyond the game. Now, if you were to go back or maybe even talk to student athletes right now, what's one thing that you would share to them to help them think about themselves as just more than an athlete and help them think about how to build forward for what their future may look like?
Um, I, you know, this it's so different now. Just with I think students seeing the revenue and the funds that can come out of it, but my thing is, it's also teaching them that hey, you are a brand. Yes, your sport is a part of that brand, but your personality sells too. How you show up in your presence and your online, that all sells too. So look at it as you're being a brand.
Hmm.
How do you want people to think of you when they're talking of you or when your name comes up? And take basketball out of it. Are you marketable? Are you someone that people want to be around? Are you reliable? That has stuff to do that. Yeah, that's part of a sport too, but that's real work life too. Employers look for these traits.
Hmm.
And I would just talk to them about the transferable skills. I literally just met with some students earlier today, our torch program, and I talked to them about, hey, while this program is geared for you all to have amazing careers and get your foot in the door from into sports, we're creating great people, great leaders, because you never know how your path can flex. Like some of you all and some of the faculty I've had, they started as coaches and now they own their own company. Or like myself, I started in television and now I oversee the foundation on on our national level. So like you never know how things change, but we want to make sure you're solid leaders. And so that's the part of building out your leadership skills because they're going to help you on and off the playing field. So that's what I would talk. Think about that. Be more intentional about how you're showing up, what you want your identity and your brand to be outside of your sport. Because I don't want people to think you have to take sport completely away, because it is in a sense, it is a part of who you are, but it's not the only thing that you are.
Mm, mm. Yes.
So
Thank you, Jen. This has been so wonderful, and you've been dropping a lot of great information and anecdotes and insights that I think is really going to parlay for a lot of people and help them, think about how they can navigate, especially for those who want to be in sports, and just thinking about how to take those transferable skills with them is a
yes,
big part of it. And yeah, you have done a tremendous job, and congrats to all the success that you've had thus
thank
far. I
you.
know it's going to continue, and just be the great person that you are and continue to impact others. So thank you very much for gracing us today with this Transition Talks interview. And for those who are watching, I hope that you got a lot out of this, and also continue to pay attention to these stories, and take note of how each one of these individuals are taking their life from where it was to where they are now,
Mhm.
and know that we all can go through it and figure it out as well. So, Jen, thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great, and I hope that what I shared can help someone. Help all the masses. But no, thank you for what you're doing for your platform to help athletes make that transition because it can be challenging, especially if you don't have a space to talk to people about
Yeah,
what you're going through. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you.